Back in the late 80s and early 90s, side-scrolling shoot-em-ups, or shumps as they are known these days, were one of the most popular game types. The majority of them had some sort of sci-fi theme, however Tecmo went all real on us with Silkworm. The game is a typical side-scroller, however it does offer some unique features. The most obvious is that the player 1 and 2's vehicles are completely different. By default, player 1 takes control of the helicopter, while player 2 controls the jeep. To be honest, playing as the helicopter is easier, but for those who want the challenge, then the jeep is the way to go. It should be pointed out that there is actually no end to the arcade version of this game. Once the final stage has been completed, it loops back to the first stage, but now with a ranked up difficulty. Sadly, Amstrad CPC owners got shafted again. Their version of Silkworm is so slow and unresponsive, it'll make you fall asleep while playing. Also, like all the home computer versions, there's no in-game music, unless it can be accessed by some random letter being pressed on the keyboard. It sure wasn't M for music or S for sound. According to the official Silkworm wiki page, the ZX Spectrum port is based upon the Amiga version, which they also state is near arcade perfect. Well, that's untrue for the start, but to say the Spectrum version is based upon the Amiga is also crazy. Maybe they meant Amstrad. It sure looks like the Amstrad version to me, but with a lot less slowdown, although there is quite a bit of it still present. Here we go with the Amiga version, which many Amiga fans will say is arcade perfect. That it most certainly isn't in every respect, but it is one hell of a great port. This version was programmed by Ronald P... Yeah, I'm not even going to try and pronounce his name. Sorry Ronald. But anyway, he's a man of great talent. His Amiga games are always silky smooth, and Silkworm is no exception. Truly a great port for Amiga fans. Quite often ST ports run smoother than the Amiga counterpart, but in Silkworm's case, it's completely the opposite. The ST version runs at pretty poor frame rate, which affects the way the game plays. The controls don't feel as tight as those found on the Amiga version, making some of the tighter maneuvers a little more tricky than they need to be. In my opinion, the NES version may not look the best, but it sure sounds the best and easily the most fun to play. The action is fast and furious in this port by Sammy, but strangely, some aspects have been arranged, such as the tank boss appearing at the end of stage 1. One feature I do like very much with this port is the ability to keep your helicopter on a down-facing angle. This makes hitting moving targets lower than you much easier. Looking much nicer than the Amstrad and ZX Spectrum versions, the C64 port is also much closer to the actual arcade level design. Playability wise, it's also not that bad. The controls are smooth and the collision detection isn't quite as questionable as that of the Amstrad port. It's just a shame there's no thumping soundtrack as default. That would have made the game so much better. And let's take a look at all those versions of Silkworm running side by side. Which version do you think is the best?